They had no idea who was coming. Then humanity's Deathworlders arrived. Towering spires reached into the clouds, made of shining metal that seemed to hum with quiet energy. This world, carefully cultivated over thousands of years, reflected the pride and power of its rulers. The Varians, an advanced and highly disciplined species, had never known fear in their expansion. To them, no civilization could match their intelligence or strength. In the High Council chamber of the Varian capital, the leaders gathered around a massive table. Holographic maps floated above it, showing nearby star systems and the routes their fleets would take in the next campaign. "Zorinthia is secure," said High Commander Varix, his 6 eyes scanning the glowing maps. "No threats remain here. Soon our fleets will expand into the neighboring systems. The lesser species will bow, as always." A chorus of agreement echoed through the chamber, a sound both precise and unsettling. Every Varian believed in their superiority. Their society had been built on conquest, intelligence, and ruthless efficiency. They had faced countless species, and all had failed to challenge them. But something was moving on the edge of their territory. Sensors had picked up a fleet approaching their system, traveling with speed and purpose. It was strange, not because of the ships themselves. They were small and unremarkable, but because the fleet moved without hesitation, without fear, and without sending any messages of surrender. Varix's second-in-command, a young strategist named Lyra, looked uneasy. "Commander, our sensors detect ships entering our space. They are not responding to hails. Should we prepare for defense?" Varix waved his multiple hands dismissively. "Defense? Against what? Look at them, scouts perhaps, or trade vessels, nothing more. Do not alarm the Council with childish fears." Lyra's antennae twitched nervously. She had learned to trust the readings of the sensors, but the commander's arrogance was like a wall between caution and action. "With all respect, sir, these ships, they move differently. They are not standard trade vessels. They do not avoid our patrols. They advance." Varix snorted. "Advance, let them. They will die quickly. The Varians do not fail. We will greet them with courtesy and mercy. And if they resist," his mouth curved into a smile that did not reach his eyes, "we will teach them their place in the universe." The Council murmured in approval. Yet even as they celebrated their confidence, the approaching fleet drew closer, crossing the boundary of Zorinthia's outer system. Far above the planet in the quiet void of space, the human fleet moved steadily. Their ships were battered, patched with parts from countless worlds, but they carried an air of purpose. None of the ships were uniform. Each seemed to have been built for survival, not for show. Yet together they formed a coordinated line that spoke of discipline, strategy, and experience. Captain Mara Holt stood on the bridge of the lead ship, the Endurance. She was a human veteran of many Deathworlds, planets where survival alone required cunning, adaptability, and courage. Her crew looked to her with confidence, for they had followed her through storms, asteroid fields, and hostile planets, and they had always returned alive. "Status report," she said, her voice calm, cutting through the soft hum of the ship. Lieutenant Rin, the tactical officer, answered, "All systems nominal, Captain. Sensors show the planet below is heavily defended, but nothing our team cannot handle. The fleet is ready." Mara's eyes narrowed slightly. "Good. Keep communications silent for now. We let them believe what they want. Surprise is our advantage." Below, Zorinthia's cities sparkled with the life of a civilization confident in its power. Hovering patrols scanned the skies looking for threats, but nothing could prepare them for what was coming. Back in the council chamber, a young Varian scout reported, "Commander Varix, they are approaching orbit. Their formation is unusual. I cannot predict their tactics. Their ships are not matching any known patterns." Varix's laughter echoed off the metallic walls. "Patterns? Ha, patterns are for the weak. Our fleets will crush them. Prepare the welcoming party. They will learn quickly that defiance is useless." As the Council celebrated their inevitable victory, Mara watched the planet below with a careful eye. Zorinthia was lush and dangerous, filled with strange flora and fauna that could kill unprepared explorers in minutes. But humans thrived in such conditions. They were called Deathworlders for a reason. Mara had survived worlds where storms ripped cities apart, where every creature was a predator, and where even the air itself could be deadly. Zorinthia would not break them, it would strengthen them. "Lieutenant," Mara said quietly, "once we enter orbit, I want 2 teams ready for immediate deployment. We hit hard, hit fast, and use the environment to our advantage. Understand?" Rin nodded. Understood, Captain. The teams are prepared. Myra turned her gaze back to the glowing cities below. Good, let them be confident. That's when we strike. On Zorinthia, the first contact came not with words, but with lights in the sky. The human ships descended into orbit, silent and precise, a shadow moving against the green glow of the atmosphere. Varian sensors blinked warnings, and the Council's laughter faded into uncertainty. Commander, Lyra whispered, her voice tight, "Their ships, they are in position. They are not responding to hails. What should we do?" Varex's expression remained smug. "Prepare the greeting ships. We will show them mercy, and then we will see how they respond." But even as he spoke, the humans were already analyzing weaknesses in the orbital defenses. They did not rush. They did not panic. They moved like hunters, aware that the slightest mistake could be deadly, and yet every maneuver was calculated, precise, and effective. High above the planet, the first of Zorinthia's patrol drones descended toward the human fleet. It fired warning beams, expecting compliance, but the humans did not flinch. Instead, one ship, smaller and less armored than the others, swooped close to the drone, releasing a simple device that jammed its sensors. The drone spun out of control and crashed into the clouds. Gasps ran through the council chamber as the sensors displayed the drone's destruction. "Impossible," muttered one council member. "They are barely armed and they have disabled our technology." Varex's face hardened. "No matter, they are still inferior. Prepare the strike fleet. They will learn quickly what it means to challenge the Varians." Below, in the forests and deserts of Zorinthia, Mara prepared her teams. They checked weapons, secured packs, and ran simulations for the terrain they would face. Every human on the surface knew the stakes, but fear did not touch them. They had faced worlds that would have killed an entire Varian fleet. They had survived storms, predators, and hostile skies. Zorinthia was just another challenge. Captain Holt stepped forward, addressing her teams. "Remember what we are, Deathworlders. We survive when others cannot. We adapt, we fight, and we overcome. Today they will learn that humans are not to be underestimated." A quiet determination spread through the team. Each member carried memories of past victories, of planets conquered through intelligence and courage. They did not need to fear the Varians. They respected the danger, but they thrived in it. As the first human ships entered the upper atmosphere, the Varians watched from their spires, confident in their superiority. They had faced countless species, and none had challenged them successfully. They believed humanity would be no different, but they had no idea. Humans were not like other species. They did not rely solely on technology, strength, or psychic power. They adapted. They learned. They used the environment, the element of surprise, and their own unpredictability to overcome impossible odds. The Varians were about to witness something they had never seen, a species that could survive and dominate on a death world. High Commander Varex clenched his fists, the air around him tense. "Prepare for engagement. Show them what the Varians are capable of." Myra watched the city below, a quiet smile on her lips. "Let them come," she said. "They have no idea who is coming." And with that, humanity's first strike was about to begin. The calm before the storm was over. Zorinthia would never be the same. The green glow of Zorinthia's atmosphere shimmered as the human fleet moved closer. From orbit, the cities below looked like intricate webs of metal and light, with towers piercing the clouds and hovercraft zipping between them. The Varians believed their world was perfect, and it was, but perfection often comes with blind spots. Captain Myra Holt stood on the bridge of the Endurance, her eyes scanning the holographic display. The fleet's formation was tight, disciplined, yet flexible. Every ship had a purpose, every maneuver a plan. "Lieutenant Rin," she said, her voice steady, "confirm positions of the orbital defenses. I want a full map of their weapons and patrol paths before we move." Rin's fingers danced across the controls. "Sensors are active. There are multiple orbital platforms armed with energy cannons. Patrol drones are deployed in staggered patterns, but I see gaps. They rely on predictability, Captain. Their movements are routine." Mara nodded. "Good, that's what we need. Human instincts thrive where predictability exists. We exploit it." Below, the Varians watched the approaching fleet with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. Commander Varex had assembled a ceremonial reception in orbit, a show of power meant to intimidate any intruders. The Varians' ships gleamed like polished teeth, each one equipped with energy weapons and defensive shields. High above the planet, the human fleet did not hesitate. Mara's orders were precise. Engage only if necessary and never underestimate the enemy. The first contact came swiftly. A Varian patrol drone descended toward the humans, its sensors scanning aggressively. On Mara's command, one of the smaller human ships, the Endurance's Scout, moved with silent precision. It released a simple electronic pulse. The drone systems flickered, then failed completely, sending it plummeting into Zorinthia's atmosphere. On the Varian bridge, alarms rang and the Council gasped. "Impossible," Lyra whispered. "Our technology, our systems should be immune to this." Varex's face hardened, but he did not panic. "No matter, they are still inferior. Prepare the strike fleet. Show them the strength of the Varians." But humans were not concerned with intimidation. Mara knew that fear could be a weapon, but so could confidence. "Deploy the landing teams," she ordered. "We move to the surface. Zorinthia is dangerous, but we know how to survive." The ships descended, slipping through the atmosphere with careful precision. The humans were trained to adapt to hostile environments, to face predators, storms, and deadly terrain with skill and courage. This was not an ordinary military maneuver. It was a test of survival, and humanity excelled where others would fail. As the first humans touched down on Zorinthia, they immediately assessed the environment. The forests were thick and strange, with towering plants that emitted low, humming vibrations. The air smelled sharp and alive, filled with pollen that could irritate the unprepared. Mara's team moved with practiced efficiency, setting up communication relays and scanning the terrain for threats. "Captain," called Sergeant Hale, "terrain is challenging but manageable. No immediate life threats detected yet." Mara nodded. "Good, keep your eyes open." "The Varians are clever, but we are cleverer." The first encounter happened faster than the humans expected. A Varian reconnaissance unit, expecting an easy target, approached the landing zone. They were confident, their armor gleaming in the pale green light. But the humans did not wait to be attacked. They acted. Mara's team used the environment to their advantage. One soldier triggered a controlled collapse of a rock outcrop, forcing the Varians to retreat. Another used a camouflaged net to immobilize a patrol droid. Every move was calculated but appeared spontaneous, human ingenuity in its rawest form. From orbit, the Varian Council watched in disbelief. "They are using the planet itself against us," Lyra whispered, her antennae trembling. Varex's confidence faltered. "No," he said firmly. "They are primitive. They cannot overcome our technology. Prepare the psychic units. Show them the power of the Varian mind." The psychic units, capable of probing thoughts and intimidating opponents, launched their assault. Waves of mental energy rippled through the forest, attempting to unnerve the humans. Mara's soldiers faltered slightly, but they had trained for this. "Focus on the task," Mara said quietly into her communicator. "Their minds are strong, but ours are trained to survive. Use the terrain, ignore the fear. They cannot kill what they cannot predict." The humans advanced. They did not panic, they did not retreat. Every obstacle the Varians placed in their path, drones, psychic interference, automated defenses, was met with creativity. Mara herself led a small team to capture a Varian communications outpost. Using a combination of hacking devices and simple mechanical tools, they disabled the facility, cutting off the Varian units from each other. In the council chamber, panic began to replace arrogance. "They are too adaptable," Lyra said. "Every trap we set is countered." Varex slammed his clawed hand against the table. "Impossible. They are humans. They are primitive. No species should be able to survive like this." But survival was what humans did best. On countless Deathworlds, they had faced conditions far worse than Zorinthia. Storms that ripped mountains apart, predators that could crush metal, toxins that killed instantly. They had learned to adapt, to improvise, and to turn the environment into an ally. On the ground, Mara's team used the forests to their advantage. Camouflaged in the strange green foliage, they ambushed Varian patrols, leaving traps and confusion behind them. Rocks tumbled, nets ensnared, and human ingenuity turned every challenge into an opportunity. The Varians, expecting an easy conquest, found themselves overmatched not by weapons but by strategy and adaptability. "Captain," Sergeant Hale reported, "the patrols are retreating. They're regrouping at the city perimeter." Myra allowed herself a small smile. "Good. Let them gather. That's when we show them what humans are capable of." From orbit, the humans coordinated their movements with precision. They used real-time data from sensors and scouts to predict Varian responses. Every ship, every squad, every maneuver was designed to exploit weaknesses, not merely attack. Their strength lay not in numbers, but in strategy, adaptability, and sheer ingenuity. The Varians, accustomed to domination, were unprepared. Their psychic attacks had limited effect, their drones were disabled or trapped, and their soldiers were falling into clever ambushes. It was as if the humans had anticipated every move before it happened. Varrix's voice trembled slightly, a rare crack in his composure. They are not acting like any species we have encountered. How can they adapt so quickly? Lyra hesitated, then said quietly, Commander, they are Deathworlders. Their species thrives on survival in impossible conditions. Perhaps they are beyond our understanding. Varrix's face hardened again, but the seed of doubt had been planted. No matter, he said. They are still humans, primitive. They cannot possibly hold against the full might of Zorinthia. But Mara Holt knew better. She had trained for worlds where death was a constant companion, where every mistake meant extinction. She had led her teams through storms that could level cities, through predators that could tear ships apart, and through hostile terrain that would have crushed lesser species. Zorinthia was challenging, yes, but it was not beyond them. Prepare the next phase, Mara ordered. We take the city perimeter, cut off their reinforcements, let them see that we are not here to surrender. We are here to survive and to prevail. The humans moved like shadows through the forests, unseen but always present. They were everywhere at once, disabling drones, setting traps, and mapping the terrain with precision. Their movements were unpredictable, confusing the Varians at every turn. And as night fell on Zorinthia, the glow from the cities below reflected off the clouds, bathing the forest in pale green light. Myra's soldiers rested briefly, knowing the fight was far from over. They had made the first move, and it had been successful. But the real challenge was just beginning. High above, Varrix watched the reports, his confidence eroding. The humans were not merely surviving, they were thriving. They were turning the environment, the very planet, into a weapon against the Varians. Every assumption he had about superiority was being challenged. They are remarkable, Lyra said softly, perhaps too remarkable. Varrix did not answer. For the first time, he felt the cold edge of uncertainty. Humanity had arrived, and the Varians had no idea what they were facing. Below, Captain Mara Holt looked out across the darkened forest. The glow of Zorinthia's cities shimmered in the distance, a challenge to be met. She felt the familiar thrill of anticipation. This was what humans did best, face the impossible, adapt, and prevail. Tomorrow, she said quietly to her team, we show them what Deathworlders can do. And in the quiet of the alien night, the first humans on Zorinthia smiled, ready for the trials ahead. They had arrived, they had survived the first encounter, and the Varians were about to learn a lesson they would never forget. The forests of Zorinthia were alive with strange sounds, low, vibrating hums from towering plants, distant shrieks from unknown creatures, and the constant rustle of alien leaves. For most species, these forests would be terrifying, but for humanity's Deathworlders, this was home ground. The planet's hazards were not obstacles, they were tools. Every tree, rock, and hidden crevice could be used to outmaneuver an enemy. Captain Mara Holt led her team silently through the thick undergrowth. Their black armor blended with the shadows, and their movements were precise, practiced. Each human carried the skills honed from survival on countless Deathworlds: speed, cunning, patience, and creativity. Keep your eyes open, Mara whispered. They'll be looking for straight lines, predictable patterns. We give them none. Lieutenant Rin checked the scanners. Captain, patrol drones are approaching from the north. They are using standard Varian sweep patterns we can intercept. Mara smiled. Perfect. Let's make them regret underestimating humans. The first ambush was subtle. A small rock slide triggered by a concealed tripwire sent a patrol droid tumbling into the dense foliage. The humans moved quickly, disabling the drone's systems before it could send an alert. Moments later, Varian soldiers arrived, expecting an easy confrontation. Instead, they found themselves ensnared in camouflaged nets and forced into traps designed by humans who had survived worlds more deadly than Zorinthia. The Varians were stunned. They had never encountered a species that could turn a planet itself into a weapon. Mara's team used the terrain to channel enemies into narrow ravines, where ambushes were lethal yet non-lethal enough to capture intelligence. Captain, one squad reports multiple patrols retreating toward the city perimeter, Sergeant Hale said. They're regrouping, but morale is dropping. Our tactics are effective. Good, Myra replied. Keep pressure, but do not overextend. The planet is our ally, not our trap. Every move must consider survival. Meanwhile, in the Varian capital, Commander Varix's confidence was cracking. Reports of patrols being ambushed, drones disabled, and humans evading psychic attacks flooded in. They adapt too quickly, Lyra said quietly. Every move we anticipate, they counter. How can they survive in such hostile terrain and still defeat us? Varix slammed a clawed hand on the table. They are humans, primitive, no species should survive like this. Yet deep down, he knew something unusual was happening. The humans were not merely soldiers, they were predators, strategists, and survivalists all at once. Each ambush was calculated, yet appeared spontaneous, unpredictable, and frighteningly effective. On the ground, Mara's team advanced. They moved in squads, covering each other and using the forest's natural camouflage. They set traps from the local flora, sticky sap to slow pursuers, falling branches to confuse sensors, and hidden pits for patrols. The Varians, relying on rigid patterns and predictable technology, struggled to counter these improvisations. Captain, they're trying to flank us from the east, Rin reported. Let them, Mara said calmly. We'll guide them where we want. With precision, humans drew the Varians into a canyon lined with jagged rocks and narrow ledges. Using handheld devices, they triggered controlled rock slides, cutting off retreat and forcing the Varians into confined spaces. Here, the humans struck, non-lethally capturing some soldiers for interrogation while leaving others disoriented. Below, the planet itself seemed to respond. Zorinthia's weather shifted subtly, winds increased, thick clouds gathered, and the forest seemed more alive. Humans, familiar with hostile environments, used this to their advantage. The Varians, unprepared for the unpredictability of the planet's ecology, found themselves at a severe disadvantage. Mara paused at a high ledge, looking down at the trapped Varian squad. Remember, she said quietly to her team, this is what makes humans unique. We adapt, survive, and thrive where others fail. Zorinthia is harsh, but so are we. The humans pressed forward, moving toward the Varian city perimeter. Their movements were methodical, each squad advancing only when they were ready. Every trap set, every maneuver made, reflected decades of survival experience on the deadliest planets in human history. From orbit, the Varians attempted to regain control. High-powered energy cannons targeted human squads, while psychic units attempted to disrupt their coordination. Yet, the humans anticipated both attacks. They used natural cover to avoid energy beams, and small, simple devices shielded them from psychic influence. Captain, artillery fire from orbit, Rin reported. They're trying to flush us out, Mara nodded. Let them. The closer they aim, the more predictable their patterns. Use the cover, move fast, and stay calm. They cannot kill what they cannot predict. The humans responded with clever countermeasures. Smoke devices obscured their movements, false trails misled the Varians, and camouflaged decoys diverted attention. The patrols that remained were carefully neutralized with non-lethal force, ensuring the humans learned as much as possible about Varian tactics. In the city, panic spread among the Varians. Soldiers who had been trained to conquer entire species now found themselves trapped, evading ambushes set by humans they considered primitive. Every mistake they made was exploited. Every assumption about superiority was questioned. Commander Varix, Lyra said, her voice tight, they're thriving, our tactics, our technology, it's not enough. They are unstoppable in this terrain. Varix's multiple eyes narrowed. Impossible, no species should survive this. They must have allies, technology we cannot see. But Mara's advantage was not hidden allies. It was human skill, creativity, and adaptability. They did not need superior numbers or technology, they only needed to think differently. As night fell, Mara's squad set up temporary camps in the dense forests. Fires were small, concealed, and carefully positioned to avoid detection. They rested briefly, knowing the day had been just the beginning. The Varians would regroup, but humans were ready. Tomorrow, Mara said to her team, we push further. We show them that a human on a Deathworld is a force they cannot control. Every challenge we face, we turn into advantage. Remember, survival is our weapon. The forest around them shifted in the darkness. Strange creatures prowled nearby, curious or hungry, but humans had adapted to every hazard the planet offered. They had survived storms that tore cities apart, predators that could crush metal, and toxins that killed instantly. Zorinthia was dangerous, but it was familiar territory to them. Meanwhile, Varix coordinated his fleet from orbit. He deployed reinforcements, believing sheer force could crush the humans. Energy beams rained down on the forests, and psychic waves attempted to disorient the human squads, but Mara anticipated every move. "Use the cover," she shouted into her communicator. "Move fast, keep calm, they cannot control what they cannot predict." Humans darted between trees, triggered small rock slides, and used the natural terrain to neutralize energy attacks. Psychic waves bounced off makeshift shields, devices built in minutes to counter threats. The Varians had expected a quick victory. They were about to realize that the humans were not just survivors, but predators of the deadliest kind. By dawn, the humans had secured a strong position near the city perimeter. They had captured intelligence, disrupted patrols, and demonstrated the lethality of their tactics without losing a single life. The Varians were shaken, their confidence was shattered. Varix stared at the reports, his multiple eyes wide. They are not just surviving. They are thriving, how can this be? Lyra shook her head. They are Deathworlders, the planet itself is an advantage for them, they adapt faster than anything we've ever faced. Varix growled, frustration and disbelief mixing in his voice. We will not fail. Prepare the city defenses. Bring every unit to the perimeter. Humanity will not take Zorinthia without a fight. But Mara Holt knew that the fight was already in her favor. Humans had mastered the first stage of the battle. They had shown adaptability, courage, and creativity in an environment designed to kill. The Varians had underestimated the humans, and that mistake would cost them dearly. Today, we survived, Mara said to her team, but tomorrow we take the fight to them. We show them the true meaning of Deathworlders. Zorinthia is tough, but humans are tougher. And as the sun rose over the dense, alien forests, the Varians realized that their assumption of superiority had been shattered. Humanity had arrived, and the planet itself had become a weapon in their hands. For the first time in their history, the Varians were afraid. The city of Zorinthia stretched across the horizon like a glittering web of metal and energy. Towering spires shimmered in the sunlight, reflecting the confidence of the Varians. But confidence was fragile, and the humans had already begun to crack it. Captain Mara Holt surveyed the city from a high ridge in the dense forest surrounding it. Her team had spent the night analyzing patrol patterns, energy barriers, and terrain. Every detail was noted, every weakness catalogued. Humanity's strength lay not in overwhelming force, but in precise, intelligent action. Lieutenant Rin, Mara said, her eyes scanning the holographic display, we know the patrol patterns, the weak points in their energy grids, and their response times. Map out infiltration routes. I want every squad ready to move simultaneously. Rin nodded, tapping rapidly on his device. Routes are ready, Captain. The energy barriers have gaps we can exploit, and the patrols rely on predictable timings. If we move fast, we can reach the inner sectors without detection. Mara's lips curved into a faint smile. Good. Speed, coordination, and adaptability. Remember, this is not about brute force. It's about intelligence. The city itself is our battlefield, and we know its rules better than they do. Below, the Varians were scrambling. Patrols had been ambushed, drones disabled, and entire sectors of their forests were effectively lost to humans. Commander Varix was furious. Reports kept coming of humans avoiding capture, using the terrain, and countering every psychic attack thrown at them. They are not soldiers, Lyra said quietly, pacing the council chamber. They are predators, they adapt faster than anything we've faced. Varix slammed a clawed hand against the table. Predators or not, we will not fail. Deploy the city defenses fully. Activate the energy barriers. Send reinforcements. Humanity will learn what it means to challenge the Varians. But even as he gave the orders, he could sense the growing fear among his council. Humans were unlike any species the Varians had encountered. They did not fear, they did not panic, and they did not fall into predictable patterns. High above the city, Mara's squads moved. The first teams slipped through gaps in the energy barriers, using grappling hooks, camouflaged nets, and natural cover from the dense forests. Others used small, improvised devices to disable security sensors silently. The city's defenses were sophisticated but designed for enemies who followed logic. Humans had none of that. "Captain, eastern perimeter is clear," reported Sergeant Hale. "No patrols detected. We can move to the inner sectors." "Good," Mara replied. "Keep it quiet, no unnecessary confrontations. We strike where it matters most." The humans moved with precision, taking advantage of every detail. Small squads disabled energy nodes, cutting off sections of the city's defenses. Others intercepted patrols and turned them into unwilling guides, using the Varians' own knowledge against them. Every move was calculated, efficient, and lethal only when necessary. Inside the council chamber, Varix and his leaders watched in disbelief as reports streamed in. Humans were inside the city, moving freely where the Varians had assumed control. "They should not be here," Varix roared. "Every defense should have stopped them." How can they bypass our systems?" Lyra's antennae twitched nervously. "They are not predictable. They do not fear the hazards. Every trap, every patrol, every psychic attack, they adapt instantly. Commander, they may be unstoppable." Varix shook his head, trying to force confidence into his voice. "No species is unstoppable. Prepare the elite units. Crush them before they reach the inner sectors." But the humans were already there. Captain Holt led a small strike team into the central district, where the city's key communication hubs and command centers were located. They moved like shadows, using narrow alleys, ventilation shafts, and the cover of buildings. Every step was silent, deliberate, and precise. "Eyes up, team," Mara whispered. "We are close. Disable communications first. Without their coordination, they are vulnerable." Lieutenant Rin deployed a portable hacking device, connecting it to the city's communication network. A few minutes later, the Varian command signals flickered and failed. Patrols were confused, orders delayed, and the elite units sent to intercept the humans were disoriented. Sergeant Hale grinned. "They won't know what hit them." Mara shook her head. "We are not here to destroy for the sake of it. We are here to show them the strength of human adaptability. Capture intelligence, avoid unnecessary casualties, and push them to rethink their assumptions." Outside, Varian soldiers scrambled to respond. But their efforts were hampered by disarray and confusion. Humans were everywhere at once, appearing where no one expected, and disappearing before retaliation could be coordinated. The Varians had never faced a foe like this, a species that turned every obstacle into an advantage, that treated the environment, technology, and strategy as a single weapon. From a high vantage point, Mara observed the city. Energy barriers flickered, patrols ran in circles, and the elite units were drawn into traps that used the city's layout against them. Humans had anticipated everything: escape routes, ambush points, and even the timing of reinforcements. "Captain," Rin said, "they're sending the psychic units to locate us. They are focusing on the central hub." "Let them," Mara replied. "We've planned for this. Shields up, team. Focus on the terrain and your instincts. They cannot control what they cannot predict." The psychic waves swept through the streets, attempting to disorient the humans. For a moment, some faltered, feeling the alien pressure in their minds. But training on Deathworlds had prepared them for mental as well as physical stress. Simple shields, breathing techniques, and focus allowed them to resist the attacks and continue moving forward. Meanwhile, smaller squads disabled defense generators, causing sections of the city to go dark. Panic spread among the Varians, who were now vulnerable both to the humans' strategic strikes and to their own confusion. "Captain," Sergeant Hale reported, "command centers are within reach. Only a few patrols remain in the inner sector." "Move carefully," Mara ordered. "We strike together. Precision, coordination, adaptability. Our advantage is knowledge and timing." In a coordinated effort, human squads breached the command centers simultaneously. Quick, efficient, and disciplined, they disabled the core systems and captured key Varian officers without unnecessary force. Communications were restored under human control, allowing them to monitor and redirect Varian responses. Varix, watching the chaos unfold, felt a cold knot of fear. They are in the heart of the city. How did they get past all defenses?" Lyra's voice trembled. "They did not break in, they adapted. Every patrol, every defense, every obstacle, they used it against us. Our assumptions failed. They are not just soldiers, they are predators of Deathworlds." Varix growled, unable to hide the growing dread. He ordered every remaining unit to mobilize, hoping to trap the humans before they could consolidate their hold. but the humans were already several steps ahead. They anticipated the counterattack, using the city's architecture, streets, and hidden pathways to funnel Varian units into ambushes. Mara Holt stood in the command center, looking at the map of the city. "We have control of the central hub, but the fight isn't over. Reinforcements will come, but now we dictate the battle. Every move we make is theirs to react to." Her team moved with confidence, setting defenses and traps to secure their position. Even as Varian forces attempted to regroup and push back, they found themselves reacting, never acting first. Humanity had turned the tables completely. The Varians, for the first time in their history, realized that a species they considered primitive could outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast them. Not through numbers, not through raw firepower, but through strategy, adaptability, and courage. Varex's voice shook. "Prepare for full retreat. They are unstoppable. Humanity, we underestimated them." Mara watched the city from the command center, her expression calm. "This is just the beginning. They assumed superiority. They assumed fear would work, but humans are Deathworlders. We survive, we adapt, and we prevail." Outside, the city remained alive with activity, but it was no longer the Varians' city. Humans had turned their confidence into vulnerability, their technology into predictable patterns, and their fear into opportunity. Humanity had demonstrated that even the most advanced civilization could be challenged by skill, ingenuity, and adaptability. As night fell over the city, Mara addressed her team. "We hold this position. Tomorrow we expand. Every sector, every stronghold, every unit, they will learn what it means to face humans on a death world. We are not here to destroy, but to survive and show our strength. And remember, adaptability is our greatest weapon. We fight smart, we fight together, and we never underestimate the enemy." Her team nodded, understanding the gravity and thrill of the moment. They were humans, survivors of the deadliest planets, and Zorinthia was another challenge they had mastered. And in the quiet of the night, the city shimmered with the glow of victory and uncertainty. For the first time, the Varians were forced to reconsider their assumptions about superiority. Humanity had arrived, and the balance of power had shifted. The next stage of the battle would decide more than control of a city. It would decide the fate of a civilization that had never known defeat. The first light of Zorinthia's sun reflected off the city's metallic towers, casting long shadows across streets now held by humans. Captain Mara Holt stood on a ridge overlooking the heart of the city, her eyes calm and focused. The humans had gained control of key positions, disrupted Varian communications, and outmaneuvered every defense the aliens had thrown at them. But the fight was far from over. The Varians were resilient, disciplined, and desperate. Mara knew their next move would be bold and dangerous. "Lieutenant Rin," she said, pointing to the city map, "we anticipate reinforcements from the north and south. Position squads to intercept. Use the terrain, the streets, and the buildings. Every corner, every shadow is our advantage." Rin nodded. "All units are ready. Reinforcements approaching will be channeled into our traps." Mara turned to Sergeant Hale. "Teams Alpha and Beta prepare for urban ambushes. Remember precision, efficiency, and adaptability. We survive first, strike second. Let them underestimate us once more." The Varians were gathering. Commander Varex's forces surged through the city gates, energy weapons crackling, psychic units preparing to disorient the humans. Confidence had shifted to desperation. They had expected to crush humans quickly. Now they were being systematically outmaneuvered in terrain they controlled. "They have taken key positions," Lyra reported to Varex, anxiety rising in her voice. "Their tactics are unpredictable. Every move we anticipate is countered. Commander, they are beyond our calculations." Varex growled, his multiple eyes narrowing. "Then we adapt, deploy everything, psychic units, heavy artillery, and elite soldiers, crush them or die trying." But Mara had already anticipated this. Humans had trained on worlds more deadly than Zorinthia, planets where storms could strip cities bare, where predators hunted in packs larger than armies, and where terrain itself was a weapon. They had survived impossible odds and thrived. The first clash erupted in the streets. Human squads, hidden in the shadows and behind buildings, struck at Varian columns with precision. Simple devices triggered controlled collapses, forcing alien soldiers into confined spaces where they could be neutralized. Smoke devices obscured movement while decoys misled attackers. Every ambush was calculated to minimize risk while maximizing confusion. The Varians were strong but predictable. Humanity was unpredictable. "Captain, Northern reinforcements are approaching," Rin reported. "They are sending heavy units." "Let them come," Mara said calmly. "We turn their strength into weakness, use the narrow streets and alleys, guide them where we want." The Varian elite units pushed forward, only to find themselves trapped between buildings and barricades. They attempted to fire, but their line of sight was blocked, their attacks misdirected. Mara's team struck from multiple directions simultaneously, disorienting the aliens. Sergeant Hale laughed quietly. "They don't know which way to turn," Mara smiled. "Good. Keep pressure but stay focused. Survival is our weapon." From the city's rooftops, human scouts guided squads, signaling movement, traps, and ambush points. The humans were everywhere at once, appearing in one street, disappearing into another, leaving the Varians reacting instead of acting. Every attack by the Varians was countered, every trap avoided, every assault anticipated. The psychic units attempted their influence again, sending waves of fear and confusion toward human squads. For a moment, some soldiers hesitated, feeling the alien mental pressure. But human training was designed for this. Simple devices, deep focus, and teamwork allowed them to resist and continue moving efficiently. "Captain, they are trying to flank from the south," Rin reported. "Let them," Mara replied. "We've prepared for this. Use the streets. Lead them into our traps." Predictable strength is a weakness. They have learned that the hard way. The southern flank moved as expected. Varian soldiers ran into ambushes where entire alleys had been rigged with non-lethal restraints, obstacles, and controlled collapses. One squad was forced into a confined courtyard where humans had already secured positions on rooftops. They were surrounded without realizing it, trapped by the very streets they thought gave them advantage. Mara moved through the streets with her strike team, coordinating with other squads. "Remember, we adapt faster than they can. We fight smart together and with patience. Every step counts. Every observation matters." Inside the command center, Varrix's frustration peaked. Reports of lost units, disabled artillery, and captured elite soldiers filled the display screens. He had never encountered a species that could anticipate moves so accurately and respond with such adaptability. "They should not survive this," he roared. "Every species fails. Every species bends under Varian power. Humans, they defy expectation." Lyra, silent until now, said cautiously, "Commander, perhaps they are something we did not understand. They are not merely soldiers, they are trained to survive the impossible. Every obstacle we throw at them becomes an advantage for them. Commander, they may be unstoppable." Varrix shook his head, unwilling to accept it. "No species is unstoppable. Prepare the final strike. End this now." But Mara had already anticipated the final strike. Humans had identified command nodes, artillery positions, and elite units preparing to assault the central sectors. Using careful coordination, she directed squads to disable artillery, misdirect elite units, and capture strategic points simultaneously. The Varians charged, energy weapons blazing, psychic units screaming in frustration. But every maneuver had been anticipated. Humans used rooftops, narrow alleys, and even the natural urban hazards of the city to their advantage. Every attack was channeled into a trap, every defense turned against the attackers. Sergeant Hale reported, "They're falling into our positions. One by one, their attacks are neutralized." "Good," Mara said calmly. "Keep it coordinated. We survive first, then we strike decisively. Focus, precision, and adaptability." In the chaos, human squads disabled energy grids controlling city sectors. The power flickered, cutting off Varian sensors and forcing soldiers to move blindly through unfamiliar streets. Mara's teams advanced, striking at communication hubs, command units, and key positions. Each captured officer provided intelligence that allowed humans to anticipate the next wave of attack. Varrix, watching from a distant command node, realized the truth. Humans were not merely a threat, they were superior in adaptability and strategy. Every assumption he had made about strength, numbers, and technology had been shattered. They are more than we expected," he muttered. "No species, no civilization should survive this." By midday, the battle had reached a decisive point. The humans controlled key sectors of the city, captured essential communication nodes, and forced remaining Varian units to retreat or surrender. Mara's careful coordination ensured minimal casualties, while demonstrating the humans' unmatched skill and adaptability. The Varians, once arrogant and confident, were humbled. Commander Varix and his council were forced to acknowledge that their superiority had been challenged in ways they had never imagined. Mara stood on a high rooftop, looking across the city. The streets were quiet now, controlled by humans. The Varians had learned a lesson they would never forget. Underestimate a Deathworlder, and you face defeat not because of numbers, but because of intelligence, adaptability, and courage. "Captain," Lieutenant Rin reported, "remaining Varian forces are surrendering or retreating." "Control of the city is secure," Mara nodded. "Good. Hold positions, secure all intelligence, and prepare for possible reinforcements. This battle is won, but the war for survival is ongoing. Humanity survives and thrives where others would fail." Below, Varian soldiers moved carefully through captured zones, realizing their defeat. For the first time in their history, they had encountered a species that could survive the impossible, anticipate every move, and turn obstacles into advantages. Lyra, standing beside Varix, whispered, They are extraordinary. We miscalculated completely." Varix could only nod, silence heavy with the weight of realization. Humans were no ordinary species. They were Deathworlders, predators of survival, and masters of adaptation. Mara looked out over the city, a faint smile on her lips. Humanity had arrived. They had survived impossible odds, turned Zorinthia itself into a weapon, and humbled an entire civilization. And this was only the beginning. "Captain," Sergeant Hale said, "what now?" Mara's eyes gleamed with determination. "Now we survive, now we explore, now we show the galaxy what humanity can do. Zorinthia is secure, but the universe is vast, and wherever humans go, survival and victory follows." As the sun set over the city, the lights of Zorinthia's towers shimmered in a new pattern. Not the pattern of domination, but the pattern of respect, caution, and realization. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never underestimate Deathworlders again. The humans had triumphed, not by brute force, not by technology alone, but by intelligence, adaptability, and courage. They had turned the impossible into victory, and the Varians would remember this day for generations. And in the quiet aftermath, Captain Mara Holt looked toward the stars. Humanity had survived, thrived, and proven once again why Deathworlders were unmatched. The galaxy would take notice.